Hello friends, welcome to this video. In this video we are going to talk about test plan in software testing. You can also find this on my webpage technicalpage.net. Let's begin. So what is test plan? Sometimes we call test planning also. Test plan is a detailed document. Okay, it is a document which has detailed information about the testing process to be carried out. Okay, it includes the detailed information about testing objectives, estimation, activities, resources, schedule, and so on. So these are the information you can find in a test plan. So let's understand each of these components. The first one is objectives. In this section we talk about the objectives or the goals of the testing. What features or functionalities will be tested? What will be the expected test result or the output? What will be the quality or the standard of the product, and so on. The second one is approach. In this section, we define the testing steps, methods, types, testing process or techniques. For example, the type of testing could be manual only or manual and automated testing, black box testing, white box testing, gray box testing, positive testing, negative testing, front-end testing, back-end testing, API testing, etc. The third component is resources. In this section we talk about the resources such as technical skills, number of resources, team structure, team size, and so on. The next component is software. In this section we talk about the software or application which will be required in the testing, such as database, web services, network configurations, operating systems, and so on. Hardware. In this section we talk about the hardware required for the testing, such as physical machines or virtual machines or anything whichever comes under the hardware category. Okay, let's move on to the next component, environments. In software testing we might require more than one testing environments depending on the functionalities, properties, and dependencies. So in this section we mention how many test environment will be required, what kind of test environment will be required. This depends on the project and depends on the what we are going to test. Let's move on to the next component, test schedule. This talks about the time, like how much time we need, when we can start, and when we can complete the testing, and the deadline also. So everything related to time will be mentioned in this section. Let's move on to the next component, deliverables. The deliverables could be test documents or reports or any testing artifacts which the testing team gives to the stakeholders or the clients. The testers give the artifacts before the testing, during the testing, and after the testing. Let's move on to the next component, responsibilities. In this section we mention the roles and the responsibilities of the team members. Let's move on to the next component, features to be tested. This section basically talks about the scope of the testing. So in this section we mention whatever features of the software or the product we are going to test. Let's move on to the next component, feature not to be tested. This also talks about the scope only. This talks about the features of the software or the product which we are not going to test. Let's move on to the next component, entry and exit criteria. Entry criteria defines the conditions or requirements to be fulfilled before starting the testing. So whatever is required before starting a testing, we mention in the entry criteria, such as the software should be ready and testable, the testers should have access to the software or the application, test data should be available, the test environment should be up and running, and the testers should be able to access the test environment, and so on. Similarly, in the exit criteria, we define the conditions or the requirements to be fulfilled before declaring the test as complete, such as deadline could be a condition. Other condition could be the testing should cover 100% of the requirement or the functionality. Another condition for exit criteria could be there should be no defects at the end of the testing. Let's move on to the next component, risks and contingencies. There will be risks in every project, so we should be ready for possible risks and we should have proper mitigation plan, okay, for the possible risks. So how we figure out the possible risks? The possible risks are figured out based on previous experience, information and the previous results, okay. The common risks in the testing could be lack of resource, lack of software or hardware, lack of skill, late delivery of the code, change in the requirement, okay, especially change in the requirement at the last moment, that will be very challenging. Also risks of budget or cost, and time is very important factor, and we should have proper planning for the time, especially we should be very careful about the deadline. So what we should do when the risk takes place? Then we should come up with the appropriate solution. Some common solutions when the risk appears are shifting the delivery date, but this is not recommended, okay. But if you don't have any other option, then you might go with this option also. And changing the scope of the testing. Normally we reduce the functionalities for testing, so this is changing the scope of the testing. Another solution could be adding resources, and so on. Whenever a risk appears, we evaluate the level and the nature of the risk, and we figure out the effect, impact and the severity of the risk. We take the most appropriate step or apply the most appropriate solution based on our mitigation plan, based on our knowledge, past experience, based on our meeting, discussion, suggestions, and based on the situation. Let's move on to the next component, pass-fail criteria. So in this section we mention the criteria to mark the test as passed, okay, such as the product should be defect free, okay, or sometimes it will be acceptable with some minor defects. So these are some examples of the pass criteria. But if the product are not defect free, if the defect exists in the product and if the defect is above the minor level, means if the medium or high level defects exist in the application, then that software or product cannot be marked as passed. Okay, and this does not talk about individual test result, it talks about the testing of the overall product. Okay, overall product or software under test. Okay, let's move on to the next component, estimation of time and cost. Okay, so estimation of time is same like we discussed in the here test schedule, like it is the how much time we have, when we will start, when we will complete. Okay, and the deadline, so we talk all these things related to time in this section. Similarly, we talk about the cost, okay, the budget for the testing, okay, in this section. Okay, let's move on to the next component, assumption and dependencies. This is a part of risk management. Okay, so as we already discussed, this is the definition of risk, right? Future unexpected events. Okay, so to manage or handle the risks, we should have proper assumption based on the past experience or information we have or the past results. Okay, so this is for the risks and the assumption. Okay, let's talk about the dependencies. So a software testing will be dependent on lots of factors such as test data, environment, resources, and the coordination and the collaboration with the different teams, team members, clients, and the stakeholders. There should be proper communication and transparency within the team and among the team members, especially when they are working from different locations, such as working from offshore. So coordination is a very important factor which affects the whole testing activities. Let's move on to the last component of test plan, which is approval criteria. Approval is also called sign off. In testing activities, we need approval of the test plan. After you create a test plan, you need approval for this, and you need approval for other deliverables. You will need approvals at different stages of testing: before testing, during testing, and after testing. Okay, and the client or stakeholders, whoever is authorized to approve the test plan or the deliverables, you should get approval from them. Okay, and whenever you take the approval, you should take the approver's name, role, signature, and the approval date. Okay, so this is all about test plan in software testing. We talked about different components of test plan. Okay, I hope this video will help you in your testing and to enhance your testing knowledge. Thank you for watching this video.